They called it St. Elora Hospital. Once a place of healing, now nothing more than a decaying skeleton on the outskirts of town. It shut down in 1993 after a fire claimed 17 lives. That's the official story. Locals, however, whisper about something else. Something much darker. My name is Sam. I'm a documentary filmmaker obsessed with exploring abandoned places. I got an anonymous message one night. Come to room 6 at Street Elora. 3 a.m. The truth waits. I thought it was a prank. But what if it wasn't? What if there was more to this place? More to its history? More to those deaths? I had to know. So I drove out to the old hospital, crept inside and walked the halls. And that's when I found room 6. It was love at first sight. Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is room 6. Let's get started. Just past the lobby and reception area, tucked away in the northwest corner of the building. Almost hidden in the shadows, that's where room 6 is located. Not exactly hard to find once you know where to look. And believe me, I looked everywhere. If I didn't have these shackles keeping me grounded, I'd be floating out the window. The most amazing part, though, is that the locals who told me about this place, who sent me here, none of them knew anything about it. They didn't even know it was here. They only knew the stories that swirled around this forgotten wing of the hospital. Stories of shadow people, screams in the night, and a darkness that lingered even in the brightest of days. And then there's the official story. The St. Elora Hospital was built in the late 19th century, a beacon of hope for those seeking solace from pain or sickness. For over 40 years it stood proudly, offering its services to the community until one fateful night in 1993, when tragedy struck. Fire engulfed the building, claiming the lives of 17 patients and staff alike. The cause of the blaze remains undetermined, leaving many questions unanswered. With the hospital's reputation tarnished by the disaster, it fell into disrepair, becoming a haunting reminder of a bygone era. But maybe there is more to the story, a truth that lies dormant within these four walls, waiting to be uncovered. Maybe those deaths weren't so accidental. Maybe they were a mere beginning. As I cautiously stepped into the room, the musty air thick with the scent of decay, I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. The room was bare, except for a cobweb-draped table in the corner and a single chair, whose upholstery had long since turned to dust. Then I noticed something strange. Scratched into the paint of one of the walls were a series of strange symbols. They seemed to writhe and twist before my eyes, forming a pattern that was both mesmerizing and unsettling. I reached out to touch them, as if their texture could anchor me to reality, but recoiled at the sight of my own trembling hands. What did they mean? Were they a warning? A cryptic message from those who had come before me? Or were they simply the product of a disturbed mind? As I stood there contemplating the enigma of the symbols, a sudden noise made me jump. It was a soft thud, as if something had been dropped just outside the room. I froze, listening intently for any sound, but all I could hear was the wind whistling through the broken window panes. Perhaps it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, I thought, trying to shake off the creeping sense of dread that was settling over me. But as I turned to leave the room, I saw it. Lying on the floor beneath the door was a single playing card, the Queen of Spades staring up at me with her enigmatic smile. I picked it up carefully, as if afraid that it might bite back, and examined it closely. There was nothing on the back, no markings or inscriptions, just a smooth surface that felt unnaturally cold to the touch. Had someone been watching me? Was this a game? And if so, who was the other player? With a pounding heart and a growing sense of unease, I decided it was time to leave room 6. As I closed the door behind me, I couldn't help but feel as if I was being watched. The shadows seemed to dance and twist, taking on a life of their own. And the silence was deafening, as if the very walls were holding their breath. I hurried down the corridor, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the room. But as I rounded a corner, I saw it. Another door, one that I hadn't noticed before, stood ajar at the end of the hall. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't resist the urge to peek inside. As I stepped into the room, I gasped. It was a nursery, complete with a rocking horse, a crib, and a changing table. But it was the paintings on the walls that truly captivated my attention. Each one depicted a smiling child, their faces innocent and carefree. But their eyes, their eyes were filled with a darkness, that chilled me to the bone. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and a raspy voice whispered in my ear, "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, but there was no one there. Was it just my imagination playing tricks on me again? Or was there something sinister lurking in the shadows? I quickly dismissed the thought and tried to focus on my original mission. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. The door was now wide open, and the nursery seemed to beckon me inside. I hesitated for a moment, torn between my fear and my curiosity, before finally stepping across the threshold. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay and a sense of oppressive sadness. The rocking horse creaked gently, as if inviting me to join it in its eternal solitude. The crib was empty, yet I could have sworn I saw a tiny handprint on the side of the wooden slats. I shuddered, realizing that the darkness in these rooms ran deeper than I had imagined. As I explored further, I came across a small table with a drawer. It was adorned with colorful drawings of stick figures and hearts. Could these have been the drawings of a child who had once occupied this room? The thought was both heartbreaking and eerie. With shaking hands, I opened the drawer and found a stack of yellowed papers. They were medical records, and one of them contained a name that sent a chill down my spine: Samantha Carter. The admission date was today, and below it, in a neat but shaky handwriting, were the words "Time of death, 3:17 a.m." My heart skipped a beat. Was this just a cruel coincidence? Or was there something more sinister at play? As I stumbled back, my foot caught on something lying on the floor. I bent down to pick it up and found a small wooden toy. It was a dog, its paint chipped and faded, but its eyes were a startling blue. As I held it in my hands, I felt a surge of panic. One had to get out of there. The realization that this place, this abandoned hospital, held secrets that it had guarded for decades was too much to bear. As I fled, the image of the wooden dog burned into my mind. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my car. But the terror that had gripped me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. I locked myself inside, gasping for breath as I tried to calm my racing heart. It was then that I noticed the time, 3:17 a.m. I looked down at the dog in my lap and suddenly understood. This was no ordinary toy. It was a key to a mystery that I had unwittingly unleashed. As the adrenaline rush subsided, I was left trembling, shaken to my core by the events that had unfolded. I had stumbled upon something ancient, something that had been buried in the annals of history. And now I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had awakened something I should have left undisturbed. The playful smile on the dog's face seemed to mock me, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. I sat there for a while, the weight of what I had discovered pressing down on me. It was then that I made the decision to return to the hospital, to confront the darkness that had taken root in my mind, and to uncover the truth behind the secrets hidden within its walls. The road back to the hospital was a blur. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I had seen and heard. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. Suddenly, a loud crash from inside the building made me jump. I turned to see a tall, dark figure silhouetted against the moonlight streaming through a broken window. It was standing in the exact same spot where I had seen the shadow person in room 6. I stared back, frozen in place, but then it vanished. Had I imagined it, or was it real? Shaking off the unnerving encounter, I pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. The air was stale and heavy, laden with the stench of decay and despair. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I began to see the true extent of the damage wrought by time and neglect. The floors were littered with debris, the walls covered in graffiti, and the beds lay in disarray. It was a scene of utter chaos and abandonment, but it was the doll lying on one of the beds that truly caught my attention. It was facing upwards, its blank eyes staring accusingly at the ceiling. What was it doing here? I approached cautiously, half expecting it to spring to life and lash out at me, but it remained motionless. Still, something about its presence unsettled me, as if it were watching me with an intelligence that lay just beyond my perception. As I moved closer, I noticed a small note tucked under its arm. I reached out to retrieve it and unfolded it carefully. The note read simply, "He never finished his work," written in a shaky hand that seemed to tremble with fear. Who was he? And what unfinished work was being referred to? The questions echoed in my mind, amplifying the sense of dread that was settling over me like a shroud. With a mix of apprehension and determination, I continued my exploration. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, amplifying my heartbeat and making it seem as if I were being stalked by some unseen entity. I found more dolls, each more disturbing than the last, strewn about the room as if abandoned in haste. Their vacant stares seemed to follow me, their silent gazes boring into my soul. I turned to leave, but I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Standing at the far end of the room was a figure, tall and gaunt, shrouded in darkness. I froze, unsure if what I was seeing was real or a figment of my imagination. As I watched, mesmerized, the figure took a step towards me. The moonlight filtering through a broken window pane illuminated its face, or what was left of it. The skin was peeled away, revealing a horrifying sight, a skull with empty sockets where the eyes should be. Terror surged through me, paralyzing me in place. Unable to move, I could only watch in horror as the apparition glided closer. Its skeletal fingers outstretched. It whispered, "You shouldn't be here. You've awakened something you can't control." With that chilling warning, it lunged. Screaming, I woke up with a jolt, my heart pounding against my ribs. My eyes shot open, searching for the creature that had invaded my dreams. I was safe in my own bed, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. But the terror of the dream still lingered, threatening to spill over into my waking life. I spent the day trying to shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. But as the night drew in, the feeling returned, stronger than before. I couldn't shake off the premonition that something was watching me, waiting for me to let my guard down. The thought of that skeletal creature with its soulless eyes sent shivers down my spine. I went back to the hospital, drawn by an invisible force that seemed to be pulling me towards it. As I stepped inside, the same oppressive atmosphere that had greeted me before enveloped me once again. The air was stagnant, heavy with the scent of decay and despair. I moved through the darkened corridors, my flashlight beam dancing on the walls, revealing only peeling paint and crumbling plaster. Then I saw it. On the floor at my feet was the wooden dog. I had brought it with me when I left the hospital the previous night, placing it on my desk as a grim souvenir of my experience. But now it was here, back in the place where I had found it, as if it had been waiting for me to return. Driven by a morbid curiosity, I followed the trail of breadcrumbs that led me deeper into the labyrinthine structure. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a low growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I froze, listening intently. It happened again, a guttural sound that sent primal fear coursing through my veins. Summoning my courage, I pressed on. The growl grew louder, more menacing. I could feel the presence of something dark and malevolent watching me, waiting for me to falter. My heart pounded against my ribs as I ventured deeper into the bowels of the building, the growl echoing around me like a death knell. As I rounded a corner, I saw him. Standing in the dim light, his form shrouded in shadow, was a tall, gaunt figure. His face was obscured, but I could feel the intensity of his gaze upon me. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but I forced myself to take a step forward. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The figure remained motionless, his silence amplifying the pounding of my heart. I took another step forward, and in that instant he lunged. I screamed as I was pulled into the darkness. The last thing I remember is the feeling of icy fingers digging into my flesh, dragging me down into the abyss. When I awoke, I was lying on a cold steel table, strapped down and unable to move. Above me loomed a single harsh fluorescent light, casting long shadows around the stark white room. As I struggled against my bonds, I heard a voice, raspy and devoid of emotion. "Ah, you're awake." Looking up, I saw a man standing over me, his face obscured by the dim light. I strained to see his features, but it was no use. All I could make out was the glint of madness in his eyes. "Who are you?" I croaked, my throat dry from fear and disuse. The man chuckled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You know who I am, Samantha? We've met before, haven't we?" His words dripped with a familiarity that I couldn't quite place. "What do you want?" I cried out, desperation.